This happened last weekend. My state is still pretty much entirely shut down due to COVID. I am working as an administrative assistant for an organization. I've been working here since I was 16. The office where I work is almost completely empty all the time, and it's really eerie compared to how it was pre-pandemic. The building shares a lobby with a hotel that has little restaurants, shops, art galleries, etc. Pre-COVID, it was a really lively happening place all around the clock. So now, most of the people in the offices are working from home, and the shops, for the most part, have either gone out of business or are closed. There is still one open coffee shop, but that's about it. So I usually work from home, but I needed the office space this time for things I had to get done. So I went into the office around noon, and it's like a freaking ghost town. Nobody else seems to be in this huge building, and the only sound is the normal lobby music echoing throughout the empty, lifeless building. I get in the elevator and go up to my office and begin work. However, I start to get this off feeling of not being alone in the office, and I get really creeped out. I check around the office and find nothing, and I go back to work. So it's around noon, and I hear footsteps in the hallway. Because of the new COVID rules, we have to sign in and out of the office in order to do contact tracing. I go into the front office to see if anyone signed in after me, and no one has. I tell myself, I'm just being paranoid, and get back to work. So I'm focused on my task again, and I hear a door softly shut. My heart starts beating really heavy, and I go back to the front office. No one else has signed in. I decide it's best for me to just leave right then and there and maybe call my boss and ask him to come back with me to collect my stuff later, so I go down to the lobby, which is still eerie and empty, and I call my boss and ask him what to do because I left my work laptop in there. My boss tells me to do whatever is safest for me, and if there is a security guard on duty, to go find them and ask them to walk me out of the lobby to my car and alert them of the issue. So I go to the security desk, and the guard there tells me he's been there all morning and has only seen me and one other person go in the elevators that day, but he didn't know what floor they got off on. I stay there with him for a while, and he sees a person get on the elevator at a floor below mine and leave. He tells me he thinks the noises I heard were probably just an echo from that person on the floor below me, but if I want, he'll go to the office with me. I tell him that's fine, I'm good, and I go back up to my office to begin work. I'm working, and I again hear footsteps. I look down the hallway, but no one is there. I decide it's not worth it for me to stay there, that I'm too freaked out, and I grab my stuff and head out the door and to the elevators. It feels like an eternity waiting for the elevator to get to me. I feel like someone is watching me again, and I turn to look towards the office entrance. The next that happened freaked me out so badly I couldn't comprehend it. Lo and behold, a very tiny woman, like maybe 5 feet 2, who I don't recognize and doesn't work for the company, is peeking through the glass of the office door, and she is totally naked. She makes eye contact with me and then runs back towards the back office until she is out of view. I am stunned. It's literally the weirdest thing I've seen in my life. I jump in the elevator and press the lobby button and the shut door button as fast as I can. I go to the security guard and tell him what happened. He says it's impossible that anyone else was in there with me because they keep a log of people leaving and entering which floors times, and no one else has entered my floor in 3 days except for my boss. I call my boss and tell him what happened, and he is sufficiently weirded out. Anyways, he, another coworker, and I decided to check out the office the next day together and find that someone had taken all the office snacks in the break room. We find in our relaxation office for when people are having a bad day and need a place to relax, a pair of socks and a brush with hair and dried flakes of blood on it, and a grocery bag filled with receipts, coins, and other random junk like thumbtacks, rocks, a small dollar store plushie, and used Q-tips with earwax, but we find no one in the office. I'm a personal trainer, and I share a space in an office that also has an acupuncturist and a chiropractor. Usually they operate during the day, and I will go around 7 to 8 p.m. at night to work out and do heavy lifting so their clients don't have to hear metal clinking or banging in another room. As a preface, every once in a while the door will unlock and a cleaning person will come in. The door will chime and they will clean and leave. The family that cleans the building is Hispanic. Usually, a taller man who is very nice will clean our office, and a woman I assume is his wife will walk around with a trash bag and pick up the other buildings in the area. Tonight was the usual routine. Go to the office, drop off some paperwork, and squeeze in an evening workout. I'm putting away some stuff and printing off a few things when I hear the door unlock. The door is older and makes a very distinct clink sound when the key turns in it. The door chimes and a man comes in asking me in Spanish if he can come in. I don't speak Spanish, and he repeats in English, "Can I come inside?" Of course, I think it's one of the members of the family to come clean, and I say yes. It isn't until 10 minutes later, after I go to throw away something, I notice the trash is still there, and this man is just sitting in front of the door. I didn't want to be rude, but I didn't understand why on a Sunday night at 8:30 p.m., this guy is just sitting here in the office alone with me. I text the chiropractor, and I tell her what's going on, to which she calls me immediately and says, "You need to leave. There is a button on the alarm to notify the police. Do you want me to come over?" I tell her yes, and I grab my stuff and approach the man. I tell him, "I am leaving for the night and turning on the alarm, so you need to leave." He looks at me and shakes his head and says no very firmly. I freeze up, thankful that I still have someone on the phone. I say, "Why are you here?" He mumbles something along the lines of, "I am on probation." I tell him that the office isn't for probation, and in my mind I am thinking, why would someone be reporting to an officer at 8:30 p.m. on a Sunday? The office is holistic. We have Buddhas and incense around. It says Oriental Medicine on the door. He stands up and blocks the door. He starts asking what the office really is, and I tell him it's for an acupuncturist and other specialties. As I type this, I wonder why he cared to know. It wasn't for probation. Why would he care so much to know what the office was? I wonder if I made a mistake in telling him. He then pulls out his phone and begins to scroll through it. He says he doesn't know the address and maybe I can help him, suggesting I walk over to peer at his phone. I tell him I can't help him and he needs to leave. He scrolls for 5 minutes on his phone, and at this point I'm hoping the chiro will get here soon. He holds his phone up at me and shows me a random list of like 20 addresses. I tell him, "Maybe what you are looking for is across the street, but not here. You need to leave." He seems hesitant to leave, but finally turns around and walks out slowly. As soon as he gets outside, I lock the door. I guess it didn't matter because this man somehow had a key and got in, but I locked that door as soon as I could. It was only then that I noticed there was a van parked in front of my car outside. This man gets in the passenger side, so he isn't alone. I decide to wait until the car leaves before I get in my own car. The way they parked, it would only take them backing up 5 feet to box me into the space. The van is huge with suicide doors on the back, and it then proceeds to wait for 15 minutes before slowly pulling out. It stops in front of the office as if they are taking one last look at the building and slowly pulls off. I wait and notice that they have only pulled up 50 feet, just out of my sight. They are still there and I can barely see the headlights. It's like they are waiting for something. Thankfully, the chiropractor pulled up in her car in time and the van was gone. The whole experience was unreal. I can't seem to wrap my head around it. The fact that this man came in with a key and acted like he was there for probation doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. The fact he wanted to know what the office really was, and he blocked the door, is also bizarre. A few weeks ago, when I was moving equipment into the space, I felt like I was being watched. I ended up burning some sage and thought maybe I was just paranoid about being in a new space at night, but now I'm wondering if there was something I was picking up on and didn't know it yet. I will keep this updated as things progress. Hopefully that man doesn't come back in, and hopefully we get a security camera installed and the locks changed. The company I used to work for had a large building that they subleased offices to businesses. One of the businesses was across the hall from us, and the guy was a lawyer. The lawyer guy was all right, and he sometimes notarized stuff for us. The lawyer had an assistant who was a middle-aged guy, a complete and total creep. At the time, I was the lone woman who worked with all men. Engineers, I was their bookkeeper. Anyways, this assistant guy would always say creepy things to me like, "Tiny Dancer '07, you look good today. That dress really hugs your body nicely," in a total creepy guy vibe type way. Eventually, our business expanded, and we needed to use the office that they were in. They found another office that was in the building right next door to us. I was relieved not to have to see the assistant anymore because, like I said, he gave me creepy vibes. Anyways, their mail would come to us, and typically the assistant would come over every so often and pick it up. Conveniently, I would always find a place to go or something to do to avoid him. Eventually, he stopped coming over and wanted me to bring the pieces of mail to him. At the time, we needed things notarized, and being the bookkeeper, I had to go over there, something I absolutely dreaded having to do. The first time I went to their new office, I noticed that the building was pretty vacant, something I hated because who would hear me if I screamed? Also, whenever I'd come to the office to get things notarized, the assistant would neglect to tell me that the lawyer wasn't there and that I'd have to wait 15 minutes for him to return. He'd always want the door to the office shut too, and I'd feel super trapped. The questions he asked me about myself and my husband were extremely inappropriate and personal. For example, my husband was in the military, and he'd ask if he was home on leave and I'd say yes. Then he'd ask if we were busy the entire time, implying that we were having a lot of sex or something along those lines. When he found out we had our honeymoon, he proceeded to tell me about a nudist colony he and his girlfriend frequented and that I should go there with my husband. One time he even asked me if my breasts were natural. It was really gross and weird and made me so incredibly uncomfortable. The guys in my office thought it was so funny and would want me to go there just to hear what he'd ask me next. At this point, I just flat out refused to go unless I was accompanied by one of them. That's when it became even more obvious as to what a creeper he was. When I first came with one of my male coworkers, he questioned me why I needed my coworker there and I should just come by myself like I used to. After that, I told my boss I wouldn't go there even if someone was with me. It was just too creepy. My one coworker, a really nice guy who managed the building, was the only one who stuck up for me and intercepted the guy when he came into the building. He told me once that the assistant had said some inappropriate things to him about me, and after that he just refused the guy the ability to see me. He said once that the assistant wanted to get the mail from me, so he went and got it for him, and the assistant stated, "But I want Tiny Dancer 07 to give it to me." I finally just started writing the wrong address on all their mail, and one of my coworkers got his notary, so we barely ever had to interact with them anymore. Every so often, though, he'd see me through the fence at work while smoking and try to start up a conversation, and I'd just run to my car or pretend I was busy. I was let go from my job last year, and I have never been so happy to not have to see someone ever again.